Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the board meeting. This is a recessed board meeting from when was the recess? May the 10th. At this time, we have the agenda. We have the invocation by Mr. Gentry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This time I would like for us to have a moment of silence in memory of Ricky Jones, a former employee of the maintenance department. Gracious and merciful God, we come to you the only way that we can come, and that is just as we are, with all of our shortcomings, with all of our misgivings, and yes, Lord, with all of our sin. At best, we are marred, scarred creation that struggles each and every moment to make sense of this world. Your word reminds us that at any time, at any place, to come and let us reason together. And then following that, though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be made white as snow. Father, that is an ambitious desire, but one that is very possible through the blood of Jesus, our Lord. And we pray that even his shed blood tonight will reign freely over all that is said and all that takes place, and that we, each one in this room, will have a reverence that leads to a respect. We pray this in the precious name of Jesus our Lord. Amen.
Amen. At this time, we have adoption of the agenda.
I so move.
Moved by Henry, second by Brenda. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Terry?
Aye.
I have a quick question, Mr. Mike. There are a couple of individuals on the agenda that wear multiple hats. And so like Mr. Channing Jones, Mr. Roger Oxenine, and Mr. David Edge, I was wondering with these individuals, can you let us know who they're representing tonight? Or are they speaking on behalf of themselves, or are they representing boards or?
I'll let them address when they come to the podium, Terry, if that's all right with you.
Okay.
Who they speaking for? Is
Yeah,
that all right?
Okay, I appreciate it.
We have a motion second. At this time, we come to information items. Dr. Freddie Williamson, recognition of retiring principals.
Mr. Chair, board members, hope you're doing well and thankful to be tonight. I want to recognize 5 principals that have served the public school of Robeson County exceptionally well, that made a decision to take another step in their life by way of retirement. So we have 5 principals. 3 are with us tonight. 2 could not make the meeting. So I will recognize Ms. Karen Brooks Floyd, who retired January 1 as principal at St. Paul Middle School. And then Dr. Tracy Ferguson, who retired also January 1 as principal of Fremont Middle School, could not be with us tonight. So let me ask to come to the podium, please, Ms. Amy Baker, who is principal of Union Elementary, will retire July 1. Dr. Christopher Clark, who is principal at the early college, will also retire July 1. and Dr. Savon Mosby, who would also retire July 1, principal of Lumberton Junior High. Let me ask all board members if you would come, please, and join. And then I would ask the board member from that attendance zone if you would share the plaques, please. And Patty, we have also a gift card. I think Patty is in the, great. So again, if you step up to the mic and present the plaque and then they come up. We'll start with Ms. Baker, Ms. Gray.
Good evening, Ms. Baker. We go back a few years. I used to be principal at Fir Grove Middle, and Ms. Baker came there as a reading specialist a few years ago. And so I've known her a very long time. And then when she became principal at Union, I was the board member for that area. And Ms. Baker, I just want to thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you and knowing you, and thank you for what you've done for the public schools of Robeson County. Enjoy your retirement.
Thank you so much. I just got to tell you a story about Christopher. 100 years ago, I worked with his mother. His mother worked at Central Office, Dr. Juanita Clark. And she says, I have a son and he's in school. So he was coming down that day to see his mom. So he bounces in. I said, son, what are you doing? He said, well, nothing right now. I said, you ever thought of being a teacher? He said, I can't get my transcript. I owe some parking tickets. And they won't release my transcript. I said, yeah, well, you know what? You need to get that straight. You can teach. He said, well, I don't have a degree. I said, well, we have a program called lateral entry. Well, neither here nor there. He got into the lateral entry program and burst it open. And just a little bit, he had paid his parking tickets. He had got all his money, got it straightened out, whatever it was you have to pay to get a Miss Human Resource. You know about that. Anyway, he came in lateral entry, satisfied whatever you do with that. And lo and behold, he entered the leadership program. Before I knew it, he was assistant principal, and then he turned around, he was a principal. Next thing I knew, he got into the doctoral program. He became a doctorate of education. Then he became a principal, lo and behold. And that was yesterday, but if he's not retiring now. So somehow he caught me in age. I have no idea how he did it. But I am so proud of this young man. This is a case of somebody walking in off the street, enjoying education. Chris, will you respond to that one moment so they don't think I'm making it up?
That is true. I walked down the hall and she asked me what I was doing, and I told her I was majoring in math and computers. So, you thought I'd blown a bomb off in the building, but she gave me a list of principals to go see, and I did what she told me to do. And the next thing I know, I'm teaching school, and went through all the programs to get certified and national board and everything else. But it's been an awesome journey, and people like this and you have supported me in that, and I appreciate that, Dr. Emanuel.
Okay, it says his plaque reads, congratulations on your retirement. Public Schools of Robeson County, recognition of outstanding service as principal performed by Dr. Christopher Clark. And we really, really congratulate you. And we know that you're not going to stop. I understand he's going to work someplace else. I knew he was too young and he didn't want to stay home and do husband duty. So congratulations.
Thank you.
On
Thank you
behalf
very
of the
much.
Board of Education.
I appreciate that. Thank you much.
Thank you. Can we share one additional piece of information? It has not been certified in the course data for early college, but we have some pre-data. And so I want you to share the proficiency percent and what are we to end.
It looks like we might be, hopefully, 89 to 90% proficient overall. And then our CGR, which is much harder, it's only the 4s and 5s. I had planned to put that in my growth for this past year, and I talked to the superintendent about it. I said, if I do that, I'm shooting myself in the foot. There's no way in the world I can make that. But we did. We've actually grown 20 to 30 points in the CGR in reading and mathematics. And had it not been for the support that I get from the central office, the support that I have from teachers and parents, we could not do the jobs that we've done. And I appreciate that. What a way to leave. Amen.
I met Dr. Marsden when she was a school teacher at Lumpton High School. I was the school resource officer. We formed a real good friendship there. Then she up and left and went to St. Paul's. But as God would have it, he brought her back as an AP. And from there, he promoted her to a principal at Lumpton Junior High. And our bond got stronger over the years. Dr. Mosby, I want to say congratulations to you on your retirement. This is a small token to what you have done for the students of public schools of Robeson County. And I always told you, you will know when it's time.
Yes.
And it's time. And we hate that it's time for you to leave. Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you. I want to say thank you so much for all that the Public Schools of Robeson County has done for me. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the support that I received over the years. I thank God for each and every one, all of you that have done what you have done for me. Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Williamson, I appreciate all that you've done. Thank you.
Again, thank you and congratulations on your retirement to all of our principals. Board members, thank you so much.
At this time, Dr. Williamson will go over the review of policy 9010.
Mr. Chairman and members, included in your board package are several items that we have reviewed in the past. So I will not spend time to read all that information to you, very briefly share it, but again, it was part of your board package. The first item is policy 9010. I will bring to your attention the 5 factors to be considered for site selection. And in our information tonight, we will touch on all 5 and answer those questions for you from policy 910. And then according to the policy, it is the responsibility of the superintendent to make a recommendation to this board for action. May I continue?
Sir.
Okay, so the next piece of information is the need-based grant application that was included in your package. We're bringing to your attention on the application that we were funded on page 6. We did sites address on the application. And so again, we were funded based on both sites. Any question on that?
Any questions?
Okay. The next piece of information is an email from Robbie Ferris in reference to the question of where the proposed facility fit on both sites for consideration. And the answer to that question is yes. And we attached to that drawings of the site and where and how those facilities will fit on the site. But both sites will work. Any questions on that? The next piece of information, let me ask Dr. Guzman if you will come, and that is time traveled by car and bus to and from both sites.
Chairman Smith, Dr. Williamson, board members, thank you for having me tonight. Contained in your board packets was a descriptor, a short shuttle distance for what would be between those two sites, between the 7-Eleven and the Comtech. Please be mindful that we are also bound by some limitations. We're bound by state statute on how fast the buses are able to drive, as well as some other physical limitations by the world of physics. And so on both of those, I gave you the distance and then the travel time of what that would take for that bus to go through. Please be mindful that for both of these sites, the buses would not be traveling on I-95 or Interstate 74, 76. Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next piece of information in your board package is the need-based grant award letter. From the need-based grant, we were awarded $40,000. Also, we received $5 million from the state capital fund for the planetarium, and then from the public schools of Robeson County, 40 million. What did I say, 1,000? I'm sorry. I missed a lot of zeros. 40 million, 5 million from the state capital fund, from the public schools of Robeson County Capital Reserve, 2.5 million, and then the local match from local government, 2.5 million. So total money available at this point is $50 million. Any questions?
Any questions, comments?
Next information is the environmental results for both options. Let me ask Ms. Bobby Locklear and Mr. Ernie Hammonds if you'll come and speak to that, please.
Chairman Smith, Dr. Williamson, board members, we included in your packet both environmental studies that were conducted at both sites. So you have one that dates back to 2017 at the 7-Eleven site. And if you looked at these over the weekend, you know, there's a lot of information in here, so I'm not going to go over all of it. But we do want to make reference to page 8 in the 7-Eleven site. And this brings out a real concern to us when we start looking at the work that was done there. That paragraph on that page says, the borings in B8 possible isolated undercutting up to 3 feet should be anticipated due to the presence of loose soil. So part of the information that was collected back in 17 notes that there is a portion of the property that if we would go there and start building, we would require undercutting. And the other one on page 26 in the Comtech site, it also lists here the potential that there may be just buried trash pits on the site that were not visible when the company went out and did their walkthrough on the particular site. Any questions or comments?
Andrew?
Mr. Chair, I noticed on the 7-Eleven site, when you look at your handbook and you look at the secondary map, let's see, that's near TC page 6, the page right across from it. It's showing lines, and the legend says that that's a 100-year flood zone, but it doesn't go all the way to the center, but it incorporates the outer layer, second layer, and into the center layer. So that's another option but it says it qualifies, but it's more potential of a flood zone. I just wanted to bring that out.
Bonte?
Why we didn't get an updated engineer report on 7-Eleven? This 2017 went 2022.
So this is the original one that was done when the land was purchased. And so basically we did not see the need to move forward and get an updated one because the information should relatively be the same.
John?
No, it says on page 26, the last paragraph there just simply says there is a potential for buried trash sites there, just simply because it is rural farmland, and there would be no way of knowing what was there until we got there and started really digging. And they're just making that statement based on historical things that have happened with farmland across in the past.
Any other questions? Mr. Gentry?
Any information as to the elevation, meaning elevation above sea level for each of those two sites?
I'm sure one of the maps would address that, but getting that detailed in, I did not get that detailed in.
Randy?
Mr. Bobby, on the one we're talking about at Comtech, are we talking about the one we own? Or are we talking about the one that we could possibly trade for?
The work was done on both. The maps in here indicate that he walked the road frontage property and the one that's adjacent to the wood line.
Which is ours.
Yes. So work was done on both pieces.
Right, but on the map that we got, it's on the one that is not ours or listed to us. Am I correct?
The placement of the building?
Right,
Yes. Now that work was done by Mr. Ferris.
okay. But I'm just trying to get the record straight that we know what we're looking at, because in actuality, there's 3 parcels of land. There's ours, theirs, and ours on 7-Eleven. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Eric?
And Mr. Bobby, what does it mean here when you were talking about the boring and undercutting? What does that mean?
It means that the soil may not be suitable to put a foundation on. And so they would have to take that layer of soil out and bring in additional soil. And if I can make a reference to some of the work that was done at Red Springs High, one of the costs we ran into in phase 1 was after the initial borings, we went there and the price, if I'm not mistaken, at least doubled because undercutting was required on that property.
Henry?
Mr. Chair, thanks. Appendix C, regulatory records documentation. It's showing us that in the year 2000, there was 2,500 gallons of gasoline at the DOT that was spilled. There was 3,510 tons of soil excavated and hauled off site. And there was 20,882 gallons of water and gasoline mixed removed. So I'm just making these items, you're aware that these do exist.
John?
Mr. Bobby, the grant was written for our land or the county at Comtech?
There was not a specific address. If I'm not mistaken, there was not a specific address. It just says Comtech. I would have to go back and look at the grant application.
Yeah, again, as I made reference to earlier, we did list both sites on the grant application as a property that we own, not the property that we might trade for, and the 7-Eleven site.
So 3 properties listed on the grant instead of
Two.
So the 2 that's listed, one on 7-Eleven, which is ours.
Right.
The one at Comtech,
The
ours
woodland
or
that's
the
ours.
county.
Right. So just 2.
Okay.
Any other question? Any other comment? Thank you, Bobby. So that's the environmental results. If we go down the list here, the next item is Mr. Ernie Hammonds. Is Ernie here?
Mr. Bobby, he's
That's
covered that
already
information, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So next item on the agenda is the 9574 Industrial Park Overlay District.
And so we added this to the agenda because that was a conversation we had in an earlier board meeting. No one has said that we would choose that site, but it was part of, and what I shared with the board at the time is I would research that. And so Mr. Channing Jones can come and help answer that question. We did include some information in your package in reference to the I-95-74 Industrial Park Overlay District. Mr. Jones?
If you will, Shannon, I know you, but introduce yourself for the general public and give your job title.
Sure. Well, good evening. My name is Channing Jones. I'm the Executive Director for Robeson County for Economic Development. So basically my job is not only the retention of current industry and business here in the county, but it's most certainly ingrained in recruiting new business and industry into our county. So I come with the expertise of outside of my job at home, which is chief trash compactor and taking it out of the house, but most certainly I have experience in the private world, a chief operations officer in a plastics company for over 10 years. I was the vice president for workforce development and continuing education at the community college for 8.5 years. And in my current position, I've been there for 4 years. So before I start.
Let me ask you this, Channing, before
Yes,
you
sir.
even go any further. Now, I know you're employed with the county of Robeson County, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I'm employed by the county specifically.
I just don't want to put you in any hardship. I know we got a county commissioner here. Do you feel comfortable making your presentation?
Absolutely.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Currently, before I start in the specific question that I was asked, I just really want to commend the board on your endeavor to create a technology campus, a technology school. And I want to share some thoughts on that, what it means from an economic development standpoint and a workforce development standpoint. I know this is the direction you're going, so I'm already speaking to the choir when it comes to that. But just to emphasize the importance of this in our community and really to give your board a lot of praise for continuing to pursue this. And so I've pulled up several studies. Well, let me first, I've been a proponent of this for over 10 years. And most certainly my time at the community college, we have seen how technical education has grown and the level of technology within these programs have continued to evolve. And it's important from an exposure standpoint to invest in our children at an earlier age so that they can see the benefits from a career standpoint in these types of curriculums. It's just tremendously important. And so a Johns Hopkins study, this was back in the early 2000s, they looked at continuing education schools, specifically in the high school areas, and they looked at educational attainment, specifically credit accumulation, along with grade promotion and graduation. So, and their key findings from this study, again, this is Johns Hopkins, very reputable, cited paper. It said CTE schools had higher on-time graduation rates in each of the 3 cohorts that they were looking at, specifically in areas of Pennsylvania. 13 to 27% increase in individuals' odds of graduation using various estimates, and I won't get into those, and 111 to 183% increase in certain locales. So these are kids who are going to these schools and completing in a graduating rate. That's tremendous. Now, the other interesting fact about this is that the CTE schools had a substantial impact on probability of successful completing college preparatory mathematics, especially in the areas that they looked at in algebra, algebra 2, and geometry. So this is in the early 2000s, and as we progress in looking at career and technical education, because there was very few studies back in the early 2000s concerning this. But then a study by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation going into the mid-2000s, there's strong evidence that career and technical education for at-risk students improves high school completion rates. Participation in CTE courses, especially as a concentrated program of study, they also increase students' post-secondary employment and earnings. So this is looking at not only the graduation rate, but it's looking at how they're transitioning, whether it's to a 2-year college and or a 4-year university, and the earning potentials if you go straight into the workforce. Additional evidence is looking at labor department and to see how that's being transitioned. On average, vocational training increases high school completion rates among students at risk by dropping by those at risk by 16%. Many studies suggest CTE programs have the greatest effects on on-time high school completion and earnings for male students and students for families and low incomes. Why that's important, if you look at the demographics, especially for post-secondary education, so we're talking about the community college here in our local community, plus the University of North Carolina, we are seeing more and more discrepancies from males and females. We're seeing our females go into higher education at a much higher rate. So what's happening to our males? They're going directly into the workforce. So the more we interject specific trainings, credentials to allow these students to go into the workforce, especially the males, this is just such a tremendous avenue to help them improve their wage over the course of their career and long-term earning potentials. Taking more STEM-related CTE courses can reduce the likelihood of school absence and chronic absenteeism. CTE courses later taken in high school 11th and 12th graders may have greater effects on increased on-time completion and reduction from dropout rates. Students who completed occupational-specific vocational courses or tracks realize increase in earnings up to 7 post-graduation, while students who complete non-specific vocational courses do not realize greater earnings. The reason I mention so much of this from this study is it's now showing a transition, again, not only from graduation completion rates, but how this affects students as they matriculate into areas in post-secondary education and or directly into the workforce. And the last one, that was a 2020 op-ed, and this was in Inside Higher Education article. And so this study was looked at in Massachusetts, specifically looking at technical high schools, specifically the school. In Massachusetts, the landscape of vocational and technical education has transformed completely in the past decade. Once a track for students who were determined to not be college-bound, these schools now are equal to or better than traditional high schools in college preparations. Vermont high schools now have a 97% high school graduation rate and state test scores on par with the school that students would have attended. Students in CTE programs have benefited from a combination of technical training, academic classes that are paired with these technical classes, and real-world experience in job settings. In many schools, these experiences include early college and dual enrollment opportunities that provide students with advanced look at college-level work, including up to a year of college credit and professional certifications that enable students to work at a good wage while in college. As fewer traditional high school students enter college with meaningful job experience, college and universities are now trying to build into their generational educational and other programming some of the innovations pioneered by vocational technology high schools. So now what we're seeing is four-year institutions specifically looking at technical high schools or these technology campuses as a targeted means to target those students because they have a more focused perception of the types of careers they want to go into. It's not, not despairing of liberal arts type curriculums, but typically these students are more focused on in the directions they're going. They're more focused in class and their graduation rates are higher than traditional students. That's what these studies are indicating. Again, this is very preliminary data, but just to commend this body for pursuing a technology high school, to pursuing these curriculums is just tremendously important. Currently, the public schools of Robeson County, I think, is our third largest employer. That is a tremendous economic development impact that we have here. The monies that are turning over in our communities because of this school system is tremendous. But the largest sector of employment within our county is manufacturing. 1 out of 6, almost 17.8% of our population within Robeson County work at one of our industries. So that's 1 out of 6 people in our county who are working in one of our industries. So why is that important? As I've spoken with Dr. Williamson, and we have discussed, and he has it in his files because I've shared it with him, we have 14 to 16 letters of support from our various industries in county right now. Some Fortune 100 companies who have signed these letters supporting this very initiative. Let me encourage you as you continue to develop this this endeavor of creating a technology campus or technology high school. This is one of the most tremendous things you can do, not only for recruitment, makes my job easier, but most certainly for retainment of skill sets that we need to provide for our current employers, manufacturing being the largest sector in our county. Please take that in consideration as you develop these curriculums. That is the most crucial part of this endeavor, is getting those curriculums correct that marries an ecosystem of education, academia, and workforce, which is private sector. We must get those right to create the kind of healthy community, healthy economy that we all hope for. That's my soapbox. I'll stop there. Specifically, I was asked by Dr. Williamson, there was a question concerning the I-95, I-74 site that was recently partnered by the county and the city. This particular site was garnered, and we got state funding to build this site. So we got over $5.7 million to develop a site with specific industrial revenue funds through the Department of Commerce. The county, along with the city, partnered to buy the land. We had to get in an agreement with the 11 private parcel owners to ensure that we could control the land within 5 years. So there's a legal agreement between the city and county that we have to have and control that land for 5 years. And at the end of those 5 years, we either have to have sold it to private industry, or we have to purchase it, meaning the city and county own it jointly, and then we would market those particular parcels to any industry coming in. As a part of that specification, though, with the Industrial Revenue Fund, is that we can only put industry can go into that park. In addition, an overlay district was incorporated. Again, the city planning, along with my office and the Robeson County Planning Office, created what we call an overlay district. And I think that was provided to the board, correct, Dr. Williamson? And you should have that in front of you. What that overlay district does through various general statutes, and I'm not going to bore you with those, but it specifically says we have the right to set parameters on that particular types of property. Specifically on the I-95, I-74 site, it is specifically zoned for industrial uses. So any high school applications, any elementary application would not be allowed in that park under its current zoning. In addition, we have legal contracts with the businesses who are looking in that particular business that we would uphold those particular types of, for lack of better words, covenants. And so I would say from those covenants and the restrictions on the industrial revenue bonds that we have developed, that we've received in those grant dollars, that it's unfortunately not allowed to go in that particular park.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. Mike.
Brenda?
Mr. Channing.
Yes, ma'am.
And will you tell the board when that was done? Because I know I was working with the county at that time, when it was made an industrial park with overlay.
So overall, the county, Ms. Brenda, there was already an industrial designation for all of that sector, particular part. It's called I-2. So there was an industrial component, but when we developed through those revenue bonds to create an industrial park, specifically in between the I-95, I-74, there's 215 acres, give or take there. That was when the overlay district was incorporated, and I want to say that was approved second quarter 2021. The funding award was awarded December of 20.
Terry?
Any questions that I can potentially ask?
Thank you.
I got you, Vontae. Terry, then Vontae.
Thank you,
Terry.
thank you, Mr. Jones. I was after our last meeting, when Ms. Brenda brought up the point about the zoning on 74 and 95, I opened the GIS and I was taking a look at Comtech, and it looks like Comtech is zoned in a industrial way as well. Does that limit our options for building this type of facility there?
No, sir. the covenants, and Mr. Rogers here on behalf of Contact, and I'll let him speak to that, but I've read the covenants for Contact because I market those parcels at Contact. There's specific covenants within the Contact facility that allows educational entities. Hence, you have UNCP's presence there, also the community college, I believe.
While he's coming, when we did it with the county portion was I-2, which means heavy industry.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Monte's got the floor.
Mr. Jones, you said something very important. You talk about economic development.
Yes, sir.
How important is it when you start talking about building facilities, preferably schools, that we build them on 95, 74, where they're visible and accessible? How important is that for economic development?
From what perspective?
From perspective of the whole county, how's that, as far as socially, economically, anything? I mean, you build it where people can see it, easily accessible, they can come to it, we can build stuff around it. I mean, with your expertise, how important is that?
Well, first and foremost, the curriculum development is number one. Everything is a distant second to that. I just want to make that clear. The types of programs you develop there is going to be the most important thing you do, because that'll dictate the size of the building, the types of classrooms, all those good things that you already know. But from my personal opinion is that business and industry are going to use it no matter where you put it, because those students are going to come across the county. So as long as you have the infrastructure wherever you decide to put it, to do it, I think it'll be helpful. Because this particular school serves Robeson County students, I don't know that it will be a recruitment arm that it has to be, visible on 95 or 74. I would be more concerned about what it's going around to make sure that it's, from a safety standpoint, that it's safe and that you can ingress and egress properly. I just know from the letters of support that we have that this school board can be absolutely assured you're going to get tremendous support from business and industry in supporting the programs. Obviously, the alignment of those programs are what's critical for them. I would say that right now, in consideration of where it goes, just from a cost standpoint and what I've seen in cost estimates from all the building, from other developments that we're doing, infrastructure is going to be key. So you want to make sure that you can get correct water, sewer, fiber, electricity, whatever those infrastructure pieces. That's my opinion. And that is not from the county or anything like that, but that's what I see. But to answer your question from an economic standpoint, industry is fully on board in supporting this endeavor that you guys are going in. Fully supportive.
Henry, and then Mr. Gentry. Henry.
I'd like to ask Dr. Guzman this question, and I know he's not at the podium, but it's in reference to the buses. What is the regulations around buses traveling interstate roads?
If I remember the quote, the right general statute off the top of my head, it's General Statute 2018 that dictates the not only the credentials for a bus driver, but also for a bus to travel. Yellow buses are governed and cannot go past 45. Activity buses cannot go past 55. The way our governors are kind of set right now within this district, our buses travel about the fastest they'll go is 42 miles per hour. And that's the way the governors are set so that they don't exceed the 45 mile an hour threshold.
Mr. Gentry.
I have two questions. For Mr. Jones, please. And Mr. Jones, you may not be equipped to answer the first question that I have, but I know that this has already been a topic of discussion, and I'm not sure I understand it completely. But my understanding is that at Comtech, there are two parcels of land. There's one that's located directly behind Comtech, which our school system already owns, and then there's a potential site that fronts on 7-Eleven, which the school system does not own, but in the foreseeable future, at least there's a tacit agreement, as I understand, for the school system to purchase that property. And let's just say that the Comtech site was approved tonight with in mind that that additional site was going to come to fruition at some point in time. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but just how likely, in your professional opinion, is that to happen, and what would be the timeliness of that happening?
Let me make sure I understand your question. So there's multiple parcels on Comtech that you either currently own or could own, and you're asking if you go for one parcel, will the other parcel be available? Or did I misunderstand?
Well, no, not that it would be available. I'm hearing that there's discussion and that there's an unofficial agreement that eventually the public schools of Robeson County could own that parcel that fronts on 7-Eleven. It's not a done deal yet. And I know that you have a regular contact and regular experience with the movement of parcels of land. In your professional opinion, how likely is that to happen? And if it does, what would you say would be the roughly time frame?
So I'm gonna defer that question to Mr. Oxendine, because he's here representing the chairman for that specific board at Comtech, and they have just recently met and taken action. So I'm not going to steal his thunder. I'll let him answer that when he comes up.
All right, I have a second question. This piggybacks on Vontae's question. First of all, I appreciate your statistics on career and technical education and its value and the direction in which many of our students, and you alluded to especially our male students, are entering career and technical education. My last years as a principal were spent in that area. And my question to you is this: I know you're not an educator.
Oh, well, I was in education. I was vice president for community college for 9 years.
And Vontae's question alluded to visibility. And whatever our take is, and I'll just speak for myself personally, but I have to believe that visibility does count for a lot, and especially when you're looking at students who are running all kinds of concepts and ideas through their minds. They're being swayed one way and the other.
Mm-hmm.
And if a place is not in a location where it's getting a lot of visibility on a regular basis, in your professional opinion as an educator, could that possibly be a detractor from locating in a visibly prominent place versus one that's not?
This school is sort of unique, and because it's going to serve, at least traditionally, the way these campuses are devised, it pulls from all the different all the different high schools within the county. I'm assuming that's what this board still intends to do. So accessibility in that regard would be, and safety from that. So the ingress and egress of where you put it would be one of my major concerns, the accessibility of it. And so if that accessibility equates to visibility in this board's mind, then that's what it is. If you look at your other high schools within the area, I mean, whether you consider them visible or not as visible, I don't know. That would be a question it's just personal opinion. I don't know how to answer it. From the aesthetic of, if you build a very nice building that's somewhere that can be seen, that's always a positive for the county. And from just from an aesthetic standpoint, anytime you build something very nice, it stands out. People typically respect that. But accessibility would be my major concern. So when a business comes, I'll answer it this way. When a business comes in, the first thing, and they've already done their homework. And so when I'm tracking business, and just to dispel any rumors, I don't select where businesses go. They have typically done their homework, especially when someone's about to spend tens of millions of dollars to locate a business here in Robeson County. Some very smart people in that business have looked at several factors. So they know what they're looking for prior to getting here. My job is to align as many of those puzzle pieces together to try to help them be as successful as possible. The one thing I hope this board takes away from this is that workforce is the number one, even prior to COVID, is the number one driver for any industry and business locating anywhere in this country. The number one. There's not a close second. There's about 22 factors that economic development guys like me look at as far as potential factors of why a company would look at. Workforce is number one, and everything else is a distant second. So if we get the workforce right, the training right, it's going to be a success because one, we're going to benefit our students, which is I know is our number one priority. But secondarily, we create a sustainable workforce for the largest percentage of employment that we have in our county. Those things have to be at the forefront of what we're hopefully endeavoring to do here. And wherever you choose to put it, my personal recommendation is when businesses also look, one of the second things they look at is infrastructure. They want to make sure that they can get the type of infrastructure they need to do their business. And I don't see any kind of large building like we're talking about now being any different. Wherever you decide to put it, ensure that you have, or otherwise it's additional cost. And I've seen some of the programs, me and Dr. Williams have talked about this, Dr. Williamson has talked about this a little bit, types of programs you have with the money that you have, we need to maximize the programming input to the facility so that we can have the greatest benefit for our students and to the employers that hopefully they'll go to. And infrastructure is just extraordinarily expensive right now. Just make sure, I'm not a proponent of wherever you put it. I'm a proponent of getting this started because it's a benefit to our business and industries and to the students. Primarily though, it's a financial question for me in my mind. Where can you physically put this facility that you have the right safety mechanisms, the ingress and egress, and the infrastructure that you're not having to take away from programming development because you're having to spend for infrastructure. That would be that's my professional opinion. I don't speak for the county in that respect. That's my opinion. That's what you asked.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
At this time, Shannon, appreciate those comments. A while ago, you have a comment, Dr. Williams? Okay.
To Mr. Gentry's question, on policy 9010,
Okay,
one of the factors, item number 4, is clearly states that sites accessibility to students and community is a factor, visibility is not, according to our policy.
I got you. You done, Dr. Williams?
Yes.
Vontae's got the floor.
Mr. Jones, I had one more question for you before you sat down. We keep hypothetically, let's just say this hypothetically, if Robeson County could get a casino, we would put it in the town or we would put it somewhere on 7495.
If you want my recommendation,
Yeah.
you put it off 95.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
I got Terry, then Randy. And then we'll get back. Terry's got the floor.
I was just responding to what Mr. Gentry asked Mr. Jones earlier. You know, when we were taking a look at the preliminary plans for our facility, it included the planetarium and that makerspace. I think in terms of the sustainability of this technical high school, that makerspace is going to be important because you're going to have those elementary kids in and out of that facility. So in terms of sustainability in the long term, that makerspace is going to be our, the key to making sure that spark, kind of comes to those students early and it encourages them to want to attend that school later on.
Randy's got the floor.
I was gonna mention that also, Terry, about the planetarium. It's not just a technical high school. It's gonna be the planetarium, and it's gonna touch every child at some point in time before they're a senior in this county, which is right now, Dr. Williamson, 21,000 maybe?
21,000 plus.
Okay. And then the other thing is, we keep mentioning 2110, and I've got an email back from Dr. Williamson, and it says in here, and words can change a lot. So, Mr. Grady, it was sent, I guess, to you, or either you sent it to us, And it says that the board will select future sites in a manner consistent with facility needs. But then in the bottom of it, it says the superintendent shall assist the board in site selection. And on the paper I've got tonight, and this was just done on the 4th of May. Then the one I've got tonight's got the superintendent shall investigate and recommend to the board. So I mean, there's a broad line here, and I've got both of them in front of me. So I'm trying to figure out, and I do see revised December 14, 2021, but why wasn't that shared with us on the 4th of May?
What are you referring to?
There's an email that was sent, said we need to discuss policy 9010. Okay? And it's from Dr. Williamson to Grady Hunt. And it puts site selection on here. And it's two different things, because one word can change the whole outcome of it, per se. Because on this one here, it's saying that he shall recommend to the board the reasonable options. But on this one here, it says that the superintendent shall assist. It doesn't have.
Your policy 9010
Right.
is clear. Investigate and recommend. That's the superintendent's duty when it comes to acquiring property.
Okay, but I was going.
Purchasing, leasing, entering, the whole gamut.
Right, but what I'm saying is, being that everybody's talking about 9010, there's two different wordings here, and I know this is revised in our packet this weekend, but what I was sent on the 4th states something different, like in the past.
Forward me what you're talking about.
At this time, I'm going to yield the floor to Channing. You referred to Roger Oxendine a while ago about the Comtech site, and then I'll let Roger speak, and then we'll get to Mr. Edge. Roger? Huh? I'm sorry?
You asked me a question, or you asked Mr. Rogers?
A while ago, you deferred to Mr. Roger Oxendine speaking about the Comtech site.
Yes,
About the land and
It's
stuff.
my understanding Mr. Oxendine's here is representing as chairman for the contact board.
Okay.
Let me say thank you, Dr. Williamson, Mr. Chairman, and distinguished board members, and to the employees of Robeson County School System. I'm here to bring you greetings and good news from the Comtech Board and Mr. Terry. I'm representing Comtech Board of Directors. I'm the chairman of that board, and I was asked to come here and share with you some information that happened on May the 17th. Our board met, and it was brought before us that it was a request made by the Robeson County Board of Education that we consider trading land. Okay, you already own 35 acres of land on the backside. What this board, I guess, I'm just talking, what was brought to our attention, that they were considering the front parcel that faced 7-Eleven. Our board met, and we had a lengthy discussion, a lot of comments, and being this property, even the property you own, the 35 acres, is dead center of Robeson County, of your public schools territory. We considered the access of all students, that all students would have pretty much the same travel time by putting it in the center. The second consideration was that, we knew that the board had limited funds. This site had water, sewer, it's got natural gas, it's got security, It's got high-speed internet. The infrastructure is there. The board would not have to spend any money in any of these components. And not only that, by it being in the center, it would be accessible for the buses. And Mr. Gentry, you were asking about the accessibility. Well, you'd have several avenues to get in and out of this property. You can go out, go to Deep Branch Road, you can go out and go to 7-Eleven. There's several, and it probably, I'm sure, that the state would be considered as putting up a drive specifically for this school. So our board met, and after a long discussion, the good news I wanted to bring to you tonight is that our board voted unanimously that we would trade land equally. We would trade you 35 acres on the frontage, which is prime. It's a gift because it's worth a lot more. That property is worth a lot more than the 35 acres behind it. But because we solicit education and we want education in our county, I've fought for this technical school for over 10 years, wanting it in this county. As a former commissioner, I knew what we needed was skilled workforce, as Shannon has already told you. We were questioned several times, why is industry going to South Carolina? Well, we got to visit a technical school down there, and we asked questions, and the question was, the industry comes in and tells the school what they want, what kind of career specialties they want, and that's when that student comes out, he's ready to, or she's ready to go to work, would already have the skill set. That's why they're getting all the industry. And I'm like Channing, I envy what he was saying, that we need it. And I applaud y'all for finally stepping up to the plate and deciding to build this school. I'll have no dog in the fight of where it's built, but I've just come to tell you that Comtech Board of Directors has agreed we'll swap land equal for the 35 acres that you already own. We'll give you 35 acres road frontage up front. And not only that, it's talked about expansion. We have 100 acres behind this piece of property that would be accessible to you if you decided to grow. And I'm confident that once this technical school goes there, it's going to grow. So I'm here to tell you, Mr. Gentry, you got the land if you want it. Our board voted to swap land. And it's, like I said, it's a pie in the sky because that land is worth a lot more than the 35 acres you already own.
Dwayne?
Hey, Mr. Hotstein, how you
Hey,
doing?
Dwayne, how you doing?
Doing well, sir. Appreciate you being here tonight and sharing that with us right here. Let me ask you, over there, if the facility was to be built over there, is there anything, I guess you would call it like HOA fees or anything of that sort that's inquired?
Yeah, well, we charge maintenance fees, for grass cutting, and we charge security. But the good news about that is every time we put a facility or somebody buys land there, the fees go down. Just like LRMC that built across the road. When they built there, the fees dropped drastically. So even though you would have fees, by putting the building there, the fees would go down for everybody in the park. But yeah, we have maintenance fees, upkeep, keeping it looking nice, and the security, year-round security, 24 hours a day.
John?
But let me elaborate on that a little bit. If you had to go put in water, sewer, try to get natural gas, high-speed internet, it's a drop in the bucket of what those fees will be, of what that would cost you to put in that infrastructure.
John?
How you doing, Mr. Rogers?
Hey, buddy.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
The land you talking about switching, is that in front of the land we own?
Yep. And it's facing 7-Eleven. It's right on the road. It's got all road frontage.
Okay, my next question is, do y'all own that or do the county own that?
Well, the county owns the whole park, but we have a board, Comtech Board of Directors that make the decisions, just like the school board. The county is over, but the school board makes your own decision. We do our own financial. We got a director And we got a board that makes the decisions of what happens in Contact Park.
So in other words, y'all wouldn't have to ask the county to switch with us.
No, sir. As far as I'm concerned right now, it's a done deal. If you want the land switched, it's switched. Our board voted unanimously to do it. So that's up to you guys what you want to do with it.
Fonte?
How you doing? Mr. Roger, how much is the fees? We keep saying the fee, how much is the HOA? How much, I think we call it HOA fee, how much is the HOA fee a monthly?
Fonte, it varies. I can give you an estimate, but it depends on the land and the size of the building, how large the building's gonna be. Let's see, I can tell you, if you give me just a second.
And that fee will be ongoing as long as we out there at the park, correct?
Yep.
All right.
You'd have a fee out there, just like if you were a business in any industrial.
Yeah, no problem.
But like I said, the more that comes there, the cheaper the rates are gonna be. In fact, we just dropped them. It's like, well, I can get you that information. There's a formula that we use.
Yeah.
And it's based on the size of the building. and
For
how
all
much
the,
property
for all the infrastructure, it really, it's a kind of a moot point, in my opinion. I hate to speak out of turn, but when you talk about natural gas and high-speed internet, whatever the fee is, it can't be enough. Terry?
With the type of, we're talking about building a technology high school. So if we're thinking, down the road, with the type of fiber connection that's available at Comtech, what would it cost is that same connection available at the other location that we're looking at? And if so, what do you think it would cost to extend, that infrastructure out that way? And I know that Mr. Channing may be
probably
able to
knows
speak
I
to
don't know
that.
if that internet's out there, but you got, as it was discussed earlier, you got UNCP and RCC there already. And just for your information, Dr. Cummins, going back to Mr. Randy's question about the planetarium, he's all in favor of working with the school system with the planetarium because it would entice some things with the university. So he would love for it to be right there where they're at. So, but I don't know, Channing, if they have high-speed internet there, that side or not, but it's probably going to be expensive.
So I know that throughout the county, we have about 5 providers. I think there's 3 providers that run in Comtech or at least on 7-Eleven. Mr. Chair, you may remember MCNC. Years ago, they had a large grant to run fiber. It was predominantly looked at in the western part of the state, but it was intended to create a backbone to get to rural areas, essentially. And that particular trunk was specifically designed to go to University of North Carolina at Pembroke. That trunk goes right in front of Comtech. I know that there's tremendous what we call dark fiber, meaning fiber that's easily, you can access. It's not taken. Somebody hasn't spoken for it. So I know that there's dark fiber from MCNC. I know there's a line through AT&T, and I'm pretty confident there's a line through Spectrum that goes to that part. And I'm pretty confident that trunk line for MCNC goes all the way through 7-Eleven to 95. I think that's true.
At this time, I'm going to defer to Mr. Edge, County Commissioner.
Let me say,
Since
before I step down, thank you
Thank
for
you.
your service to the students of Robeson County.
Thank you.
I
We appreciate it.
what you do.
Hold on 1 minute, Mr. Edge, if you don't mind. Craig had his hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Roger. The land that he is referring to, I know there's a question or two about exactly where it's at. If I have maps, if you want to see specifically where the road frontage is at and specifically the land that we actually own, I can show you that. And as Mr. Rogers said, there's possibility of picking up more land, and that's what basically in conversation we'd have, but since he's the director, felt it was very important for him to come here and share that if we get the 35 acres and then we need to expand down the road, there's access to this land, and it's not like having to skip land and go around and get that land. All of this land would be adjoining. And it ends up totaling up probably close to 100 acres, if I'm not mistaken, if you put it all together, if expansion is looked on down the road. And that road frontage on 711 is very long. And there's also a road currently that goes behind Native Angels that I'm sure could be expanded from rear entry to a site there at the Comtech Park. Then the maps that I also have does have the infrastructure picture, and it's color coded as to what is already out there in place that would just basically be different tie-ins to. Thank you.
Do you have a question, Mr. Gentry? Then we'll get to you, Mr. Edge. Go ahead.
Since he just brought this up and his update on the mapping aspect of it, is there egress to Deep Branch Road or possible right of way for egress to Deep Branch Road from the site we're discussing now?
Yes.
Well, they would be. If you went all the way through the Comtech property, you would go to Deep Branch Road. Yes, sir. That's the main road. That's the main road through Comtech. It would take you to Deep Branch Road.
Mr. Edge, you had the floor.
Thank you. Superintendent, Dr. Williamson, Chair Mike Smith, and board members, I want to thank you for allowing me to make this presentation. Don't do this every day, so I tried to make me some notes. Getting old, I'll forget stuff I want to tell you. I began thinking about these two properties that you.
Excuse me, Mr. Edge. Who is Mr. Edge representing?
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm representing David Edge, a county commissioner. I am not here in representing the board. The board did not vote for me to come to do this. I started to poll them, but I did not. So I'm here on behalf of myself, David Edge, a citizen, and as a commissioner of Robeson County.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes. As I started to say, I began thinking about these two properties when I heard that the school was going to be built, and it was kind of narrowed down to the two sites. And I think the success of this school as a technology center depends on where it's put. If I'm correct, I think it's an optional high school that kids don't just go there, it's they choose to go there. So accessibility for those students are critical. This school has been talked about for 10 years or so. If you remember, we talked about building several schools at one time, and that kind of fell through the cracks. Won't blame nobody for that, but I remember going with some of these board members in here. I think Dr. Locklear took me down to Horry County. Was that you? I thought it was. We visited a technology school, and I think I'm the only commissioner that actually did that. And I'm saying that basically to tell you that I am on. Okay. But I just wanted you to know, I am concerned about this technology school and where it is located. This building will be used by the Robeson County residents for 50, 75, maybe 100 years. And it's real estate has always been location, location, location. If it's not the right location, something's not going to work quite as well. So optimum is to have the right spot in the most central location for all the residents of Robeson County as much as you can. This is a big decision for this school board. It's probably the largest and the most important decision that this board will have the opportunity to make. You don't get this opportunity very often in life. And to make that decision, you need data. It's not just where I want it or my community wants it or where this is at or where that's at or which one I like the best. It's really what's best for the community. So I'm here to share information for you to make those considerations. Most of all, remember that you took an oath to serve the county, not your community. But you all know that. I did as well. I hope you're honored and burdened by the opportunity to make the right decision. It is a burden. You know, you should lose some sleep over making the right decision. I spent some time looking at maps, trying to figure out, you know, what was the best location. And you guys have a map. I've seen some of you on your desk that I drew. And I didn't draw a map. I started drawing on this map. I went online trying to find census data, and then come to find out that COG had a lot of data that I could use. So I got it. They sent this map to me, and I went on the map. Actually it's so vague, I had to really use the GIS and draw up real close on this map to find the exact spots. So I assure you where I put those dots are within a small range of where we're looking at those sites are. So I took the two sites in particular that you're considering are my numbers, number 5, which is a Comtech site, and number 2, which is the 7-Eleven site. And this map, those numbers on it is the population in that community. So what I did is I drew a circle. I sat down at my desk and I used this scale at the bottom of this map that shows 16 miles. And I kept looking for something that was that distance, and I found a magnifying glass in my desk. It was just a little bit wider. So I think it's about 18 miles across. So I used that and I centered it on these dots and I made a circle around it. And I added all those numbers inside to get the population, which is 18 and less, in that circle. Now, in 2 cases on here, that line went through a number. And when it went through that number, I just used half of that number. Just my calculations, not saying that's perfect, but that's the way I did it. So after I saw those 2 numbers, I thought, well, let me go some other places. So I kind of studied where some land was. I actually went out and met with some realtors and found some land that, yes, we can buy. One of them is on 74 because I'd heard some conversation about 7495. So I went down, looked at some land there, got some property that we could buy there. I went up to 95 and 211 where Tractor Supply, Cracker Barrel is. The property right behind it, we can buy that. I've got a document stating what they would sell us, how we could choose what we wanted to. Also went up on 301, just north of Robeson Community College. There's a nice piece of land there just before you get to Rennet Road, a couple hundred acres or so. We could get basically anything we wanted. So I used those locations. So number 1 is actually at that site north of RCC. And then the number 3 is Highway 74, which is down there very close to where your property is on 74. Number 4, did I say that correct? Yeah, number 3. Number 4 is 95 at 211. And then number 5 again is Comtech. Comtech, in my opinion, is the worst site you could go to. It has the least amount of population in 18-mile range of any site that I chose. Now, we could take a map and take that number 1 and move it a little this way or that way. Actually, it might add a little bit to it. And I kind of looked at that because I actually think the center of the county is just a little bit left or south west of that location. I don't know if I send you guys a copy of the map that I took and drew a bunch of lines on or not. I think I emailed a couple of them to you, Chairman, about trying to find or identify the location that's the most central spot. I'd be glad to share that. I think I've got it with me, but the point is that I'm trying to get across is that number 2 is a much better location, which is Deep Branch Road, is a much better, more centralized location. with more population in it by 38.5% of what's at Comtech. The best site, which is very marginal, more than the Deep Branch Road site, would be out at like RCC. There is property there that I feel like we can acquire. I know the president has expressed interest that she would love to see us go to that site. And I think, I'm pretty sure that it could be bought. Or acquired from RCC in some fashion, how we need to do it. I don't have that confirmed, but I know it can be, I think it can be done anyway. So in reality, of the two properties you own, 7-Eleven is by far the best site. And if we wanted to talk about visibility, visibility can be important. It can be impressive. If that building, as Channing said earlier, if it was sitting on 95 and it was a nice looking building, people coming down at 95 would see it, would say, hey, these guys are trying to move forward. And one thing that I really like about a 95 site, whether it was at RCC or if it was at 211 and 95, is if the planetarium was going to be built there, and I may be thinking of this totally irrelevant to how you guys would think of it, but I think that planetarium could pull some dollars in from the school. Tourism, people traveling 95 could stop. Maybe the school system could have a program twice a day that people could walk in. I just believe it would bring a lot of dollars that the school could charge for people coming into the planetarium, not just students use. I can remember the first time I ever went to a planetarium. It was at Chapel Hill. I remember I brought a group here, an old car group here about 10 or 15 years ago, and I took them to the planetarium, about 100 people, maybe a little more. And I've gone, since you moved, I think we sit in on the planetarium. So I think it's an item that could be marketed and be a benefit for the school. There again, just my thoughts. The last piece of data that I would like to give you, I don't know if you have this or not, but I actually, here it is. I actually took those three sites, which I knew you were considering, the 7-Eleven and Comtech. I took those sites and I took 301 North at or near RCC, and I went to all 5 high schools, and I used Google Earth, I believe is the name of it, and I put in the address for the site, and I then did it to and from all high schools on the back roads, not any interstates. And when I took 301 North and went to all high schools, there was a total of 65.2 miles to get a vehicle from that site to all of the high schools. If I took the 211 site, it was 66.9 miles. Not a lot of difference. And if I went to Livermore Drive at Comtech, it was 69.7 miles. That was one trip, one way. So basically the difference between 301 North and Comtech is like 4.5 miles per way total. Again, that's not a lot, but anyway, just wanted to make that presentation. If you guys got any questions you'd like to ask me, I'll be glad to answer them for you.
Mr. Edge, I know you're not speaking on behalf of the county commissioners. However, I would like to address this question to you because I think you would have some insight. Obviously, 2 of these sites do not require purchasing on behalf of Public Schools of Robeson County. If the board was interested in one of the sites that does require a purchase, do you have any recommendations or suggestions about procurement of funds to make that purchase?
I think that the board would be very likely, very open. I actually also talked with manager Wayne Horn about the property at RCC. I've not just kind of took everything that I came across and thrown it at you guys. I wanted to do a little research before I did it. And I asked him, I said, what about that property and access to it? And he said, we'll make it happen. That was Wayne's comment. We'll make it happen. And I hope you're recording that in case Wayne's listening. Yes, I think to answer your question, we have a good board. And our board wants to work with the school board. There was a note from one of the other commissioners, not myself, that there had to be some schools built. And there were several yeses in the room. You guys that's been around a while know I've always tried to shoot you straight. If I thought something was told to you that was a little bit pie in the sky, I told you about it. And so I'm telling you now, I think that we could take care of the property.
Got Terry, then John.
Well,
Wait 1 minute. Mr. Brandt, did you have something?
Mr. Chair, I beg your exception.
I'm sorry, I got you. Make sure you raise your hand up. I got Mr. Brandt, then John, then Terry, then Dr. Emmanuel. You got it.
Let's go back to the Apollo program for a minute, specifically Apollo 15. Astronaut David Scott was in the room where it happened, as they say in Hamilton, where the selection was made for where they were going to put the Apollo 15 lunar module down. And Dave Scott, you might have seen this if you saw the HBO series From the Earth to the Moon a few years ago. He said, be aware of grandeur. Can you imagine what a golden dome on top of a hill, wherever it is, would look like to people passing by in the street? At the very least, curiosity. At the very most, a potential supporter of the public schools. Because, of course, we all know who I play for. I play for the fourth graders and third graders and all the other ones. And they would love to come to a shiny place like that, wherever it is. So I encourage you to think wisely and be aware of grandeur. Be aware of the mountains around you. Dave Scott ended up putting lunar module on a half-mile strip between a 14,000-foot mountain and about a 10,000-foot deep ravine. And he landed that thing right where you would expect an Air Force commander to land it, right on the spot. So may you do the same. Thank you.
Dr. Emmanuel, I'm going to yield to you, then Terry, then John.
I've been very quiet listening and gaining all this information. First of all, let me acknowledge that Mr. Edge is my commissioner, so I'll respect him. Okay, Mr. Edge? But I do want to just add some information on what he said. This technology high school is a magnet school. When you do a magnet school, you build that school, then the kids will come to you. Naturally, it's very hard to say that I'm going to build it where the kids are. No, you build that school, then the kids will go to that based on their needs or their selections. So part of what you said, I agree with, but part of it, I don't agree with it. Just like when you were dealing with the aged children, and you talked about there was an age limit. Some of those children were aged out. It's difficult to look at the age unless you look at the ages under that when you're building that school. And some of the information you posed, I think there's merit to it. But just remember, when we're all discussing it, we're building a magnet school, meaning we have that school and the children are going to come from all over regardless. You can't build a school where the population is. That's how you do a regular school. This is a magnet school. And what you said is right, partially, but it's very difficult to build this kind of school where the kids are already there. You build it and they come to it.
If I understand correctly, this is just for Robeson County schools, right?
That's correct. But see, there's high schools, they have to come to it. You can't
Right.
build it where the kids already live. We got to build it, and then the kids will come to that school from the different high schools.
But it would not be very wise to build it at St. Paul's, would it?
I'm not going to say that. I think it's wise to build it at the dead center. I think it's wise to build it where the infrastructure is. I'm telling you my personal opinion. You build that school and the kids will come to that school from all high schools, based on their curriculum, based on their needs, based on what avenue the parents want them to go instructional wise. So it's hard to say I'm going to build it here because the more kids are living here. That it won't work with this kind of school. You get that central location, what's the dead center of the county, in my opinion, and this is where you build it. The kids are going to come to the school. It's a magnet school. I mean, not fussing with what you said, because you've done a lot of hard work, but that's how this school will work. You build it and then they come to it from wherever they are, whatever they're going to take.
One thing, let me be sure I understood too, when you mentioned the 18 years, if I didn't make that clear, the number that I gave is 18 and younger.
Okay, then it would be good, which I know you didn't have time, and I'm not arguing with you, if you could get the age back, starting up what age group that would be going, because some of those kids would be aged out, and that would be so much work, and you were just doing a statistical analysis of, in a quick way. But I'm just saying, I don't want us to forget what we're doing with the magnet school. And we're not building a high school for a district. We're building a magnet school to draw the kids from the whole county. Thank you. But thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. This time I got Terry, then John, then Dwayne, then Craig.
I appreciate you, Mr. Edge, for bringing this information regarding numbers of students and where they're located now at this time. But I would argue that where the students are is important, but the population in the county is going to shift over the next X number of years. It's a natural progression that people are going to move, population is going to change. The one thing that's not going to change is our geography. I don't think Scotland County is going to give us any land, and I hope we're not thinking about giving them any either. So our geographical boundaries aren't going to change. So what I was thinking about, during Mr. Edge's discussion, if you go to Google Maps or Apple Maps, I actually did it on both. And the reason I thought about this is because over the past few weeks, I've been asking people where the geographical center of the county is. If you ask 10 people, you're going to get at least 9 different answers. So if you open up Google Maps or Apple Maps and you put in Robeson County, it's going to drop a pin based on some sort of algorithm where that program thinks the center of the county is, and it's two different ones. But not too far apart. So for Google, both Google and Apple, essentially, it's at the crossroads at Low Road and 7-Eleven. It's not too far from the produce stand there. So I just wanted to bring that point out. And also, it sounds like from what I was hearing earlier that based on our grant application, we're limited to 2 sites, unless we do have other options based on the discussion that I heard earlier, but I'll let somebody clarify that. And also, I wanted to ask one more question. So we received this pot of money from the state along with some other schools. So we're not the only county in the state that received this. Is somebody that has a better grasp on what's going on statewide, can anybody speak to where other districts are in terms of their process compared to where we are?
It's luckily, I don't have any information in terms of that.
The dollar amount that was supplied.
Right, we can send you that information, but in terms of where they are, I can't tell you.
How many million were applied for, Dr. Williams? You remember? You don't remember? Okay.
In terms of where they are as far as have they started building? Do they have locations selected? Where are we compared to other districts? Does anybody know?
I would make the assumption that probably some of those districts do have shovel-ready projects at this point. I can get that information, but I want to make that assumption. Bobby, you may know something different. You were at the meeting.
John's got the floor. Huh? Bobby's going to answer you.
So a couple of weeks ago, went to Raleigh to receive the money, and there were 4 counties that were allowed to speak. And all of those counties that spoke indicated that they have locations and they're ready to go.
We got locations.
And one was actually building, it was a small county out west, and they're actually building a 412 school. One county was actually building a pre-K 12 school, and the other one was doing something similar. They were renovating their career technical education facility. They were actually renovating, not building new.
How you doing, Mr. Stage? You said that you said that the city and along with y'all, the county, if the school was to be built on 301 down there from RCC, that both of y'all be willing to help out with the cost.
I think we would.
So that would be a no-win situation there, because we would need more money.
Hey, Mr. Edge.
Hey.
Couple of comments. I'm not sure which order I need to hit in. So, well, Mr. Simmons just addressed the one thing. So, now I won't be ugly about it, but the county would be willing to help purchase land to build this school. As far as you think they would.
I believe we have the votes to do that. I am not here on behalf of them, so they did not tell me to say that.
Okay.
Matter of fact, one told me not to say that. So,
Okay.
but
All right.
I'm just telling you my opinion.
Opinion of that. Okay, that's fine. That's fair. I'm gonna read a statement that well, it's just information I have. The UNCP and RCC, they purchased land in 2001 at Comtech, and they've both built there since then. I don't have the date PSRC purchased land at Comtech, but they purchased land at Comtech. And it's 2022. And I feel very safe in saying this. If this technology school is not built at Comtech, this school system will never build anything at Comtech. And it was my understanding that all the information I can gather, original agreement, it was an educational area, and the 3 educational entities in this county would put something on that property. We haven't done it yet. Let's be realistic. This year's a nice school board building. We're not building a school board at Comtech. You know, we might stay here, and if we leave here, we could go to 7-Eleven, but we're not building one at Comtech. We're not building a bus garage at Comtech. I couldn't support that, but you could build one at 7-Eleven. And because of flooding, one day we're probably going to have to build one, but it's not going to Comtech. So of a major investment in this county, to me, it's the technology school. Now, I know we've talked about where you would see it. Folks, I don't care who sees it coming down 95. I'll just be blunt about it. Those folks don't stay here. This school is being built for the citizens and the children of Robeson County, not for people traveling down 95. Now, is there going to be more traffic down 95 than 7-Eleven? Yes, there is. But now, trust me, there's a lot of traffic down 7-Eleven and Deep Branch Road. But we're building this school for people, for children in this county, not for the people traveling back and forth and traveling by. It's moving the career center there, plus with whatever else we possibly can add to it. And I had one other thing, since I had been like Dr. Manuel's kind of stayed quiet. Let me make sure that I can read my writing. Mr. Terry might have asked the question about what's going on, and Mr. Bobby said there was 4 sites mentioned stuff in the state. In my information, we're being watched, and they're watching to see how quick we can get something started and get something done, because I don't remember the exact figures, but it was something like over $1 billion was requested for these funds to build in the state. And they funded like 275 million. Don't hold me to those, but that's pretty close. So a lot of people didn't get this money. And the folks that didn't get it are watching to see what's the Robeson counties and other people doing, how quick are they getting started? Because we're ready to go. We got a site, we got the plans, we're ready to go. So we've got almost everything. We started talking about this when I was here in 2020. The original 15 million said Comtech. This one here says Comtech and it says 7-Eleven. So we need to make a decision and we need to move on. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Edge, for bringing that information. All right, so a couple of comments right here. And everything has its pros and cons. I think it was Mr. Jones that said location. Was it you or was it?
I did. I don't know if he did or
Mr.
not.
Edge? Okay. And yeah, we can talk about location. Everything is going to have its pros and cons. If I go to the beach, I want to stay on the ocean. I don't care if you've got a house that's 6 blocks back and they've remodeled it and everything. If it's a shack on the ocean, I want to look at water. So it's whatever anybody wants right there. Something that I would like to address right here that was shared earlier was we were talking about a lot of traveling on rural roads. Am I correct on that? A lot of the traveling where we would stay away from 95, 74. Does that sound correct? I'm just asking. So we're trying to stick with the rural roads right here. This is a question to Dr. Guzman. Dr. Guzman, when we look at school closings, when it's 30 degrees outside, or if there's been rain, or if there's been ice, if there's been sleet, pretty much the reason that we're looking at delays and things of that sort is because of what? Let me help you out. It's called rural roads. I've been in the business. I have worked more wrecks on rural roads than I have on interstate, 74, 95, or anything of that sort right there. I wasn't trying to, but if you want to speak on behalf of that.
It's also due to safety. So governors on our buses going 42 miles an hour. Minimum speed limit on the highways is 45. So therefore we'd be violating North Carolina laws on that.
Right.
So that is, there is a reason why. It is purely out of safety. Having a bus going down there, especially most of the yellow buses that would be traveling, would be in the 38 to 30 mile an hour range in a right-hand lane on a very busy section that's getting ready to also have 5 years of construction to be done. So it is
Right.
predominantly based out of safety, sir.
So let me ask you this also. So pretty much at this site right here, kids would not just be riding buses, they would also be driving maybe their own personal vehicles also.
That would be dependent on what the board allows and what goes through.
Right.
Currently, right now, students are not allowed to drive to the Career Center, which is this, I'm assuming, would operate similarly. So therefore, that's why there would be shuttles.
Right. Okay. All right.
Hold tight.
I'm good.
I did. I just want to thank Mr. Edge, Mr. Roger, Mr. Channing. When we had our construction meeting, and finance meeting, these are questions that we asked about. There's nobody said that it had to go on 74 and 95. That was an idea. There's also land past 74 and 95, further down where our maintenance warehouse is. In saying that, I want to thank y'all, the work that you put in to bring these numbers and stuff to us. And in trying to help us make our decision. And it's like Mr. Craig said, I know we've got to make a decision. It's inevitable. There's been a lot of talk, just like with county commissioners and city council, city manager. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm glad of the input. Because my first thing is, Mr. Roger, that when I seen this and where it was sitting at, I knew that weren't our land. So I was getting a picture of something that wasn't ours. So now knowing that it's been gone through your board, and I appreciate that if that's where it goes. And I'd just like to say thank you. Appreciate you.
If we push back or if we push back a date in terms of deciding on a location, what else would we have to conduct one of these studies again for that alternate location?
An environmental study, yes, on any new site.
So in addition to, I guess, going in negotiations with the county and whoever else, what other steps would have to take place before we could actually be shovel ready? Acquiring the funds, I guess, we'd have to.
Well,
Brenda's got the floor.
Mr. Chairman, to both of my former employers, thank you for coming. And I've listened to the discussion. Being from the far west of the county of Robeson, I initially started school at St. Andrew's Presbyterian College. However, when it was a private school, and when my father's money ran out and mine ran out because I was working at J.P. Stevens at that time, I transferred over to Robeson Technical College, Robeson Technical Institute at that time. And what I've learned, and I want to say this here, when you want something bad enough, you don't care what the distance is. And to me, education is something that if it's in you, it's going to draw you, regardless of where it's at. And the thing that I love the most about Robeson County, and I don't know how many of y'all know I drive behind buses and all that. One of the greatest things I can say as an adventurous is when you ride through our county, you see the beautiness of our county everywhere. And I believe wholeheartedly we have been on the table since 2008 trying to build this technology high school. I'm aware of the one in Stanley County through Richard Hooker, one of our former school board members also out west. But we have monies now that we didn't have before. We are looking at, pray to God we don't go into recession, but that's what it looked like. But we have how many millions of dollars? And the only thing this money is waiting on is for us to make a decision, in my opinion, to the two sites that we do currently have. And you already know I don't have hidden agendas. I always say Comtech because that was an original site that we looked at. But I don't want this money to pass us by because we have a good board, Mr. Like you said, y'all have a good board. We have a good board. And we've done some phenomenal things thus far. And I do believe if we make the right decision tonight, it's going to not only enhance our entire county, but can you see the smiles on our students and staff faces? Because if you build it, they're coming. That's all I want to say.
All right. What is the timetable of us like picking a site or being shovel ready and stuff like that? Cause it seems like we just trying to rush it instead of making a good decision.
It's 2008.
I mean, I was not on the board though. Sorry,
Right.
was not on the board then.
Oh, sorry.
So what it seems like is it just me or seem like we're just trying to rush and get stuff done? What is our timetable? Nobody never said what is our timetable. As far as, is there a time limit on when we have to spend that money, when we have to break ground? What is it? What is the length of time? No, but
Erica, the new grant, can you talk to, it expanded what that time?
At this point, there isn't like a final date, but and this is my opinion, as it has always been with the needs-based applications, the optics of these funds mean a lot to people. So PSRC did not apply before because we didn't have a shovel-ready project. And there was a lot of discussion about why we didn't apply. So moving forward, once we have applied, as I don't know, somebody mentioned about people watching, there were several districts that did not receive any funding at all. So the optics of these funds tend to have a background on their own as well, but officially there is not a specified date as far as when the funds have to be expended.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, first of all, I want to say, Mr. Edge, Commissioner Edge, we appreciate you coming, compiling this information. You are my county commissioner also. Done a great job. Based on the information you provided, it was based on population. And I'm an at-large board member. I traveled the whole county and I've talked to different ones. Their concern is to make it equal and as fair to everybody as we can. And they're looking at distance. They're not looking at population. And to be honest with you, if we look at population, I think this whole board would come to a consensus that with Bragg coming into Fort Bragg, the northern end of our county is the fastest growing populated area. And matter of fact, we moved the 5th grade from the elementary school at St. Paul's to the middle school because we were busting out the seams. And I wouldn't be afraid to say, coming from Henry, that if we look at another school, it's probably going to have to be in the northern end of the county. So that 7-Eleven probably wouldn't even be a good option then. But when I dropped my finger in the center of the county, which I acquired a Robeson County Commissioner's map, and I just stuck my finger, put it on the wall, stuck my finger in the middle of the county, and I put a red dot, and then I started studying to see where I put that red dot. It was right on top of Comtech. And they're telling me that all the facilities are there. We already have a partnership with Robeson Community College. I mean, it's a no-brainer to me that we serve everybody the same. We put it at Comtech, but that's my opinion.
Since you addressed me, I'm going to follow up when you said distance. This is the distance.
And
To
I'm looking at our transportation department and what they're saying bus distances is, drivable distances. And it's not major highways.
And if I may address that, the 7-Eleven site total one way of all the schools of those shuttles would be 67 miles. In your board package, you have the distance and the travel time from that site to what that location would be one way. So of course, if its distance is 14 miles in your chart, it would be 28 total, 25 there, 25 back. So yes, if you add up the whole entire of that 7-Eleven site, it comes out to 67. Comtech's at 72. We're talking about 5 miles. It's a difference of 5 miles down the road. Whereas other locations, of course, go farther.
That's basically exactly what I came up with. Thank you.
Mike, let me,
We got one more thing on the agenda. We'll do this, we'll use your mic, sir. RFQ. Bobby Locklear's got the floor. RFQ.
Chairman Smith, Superintendent Williamson, board members. So part of the process to get us shovel ready is to get a firm, a design firm in. So we work with Mr. Grady and we have created an RFQ for this project. The timetable for this is due back to us for selection by May 31st. So once that firm is selected, then of course, we would get the ball rolling to make this project shovel ready.
Have a motion. We need a motion for RFQ? Huh? We don't need a motion? Brady says we don't need a motion. Okay. All right. All right,
Mr. Chairman, I call for a 5-minute recess.
I agree. We'll take a 5-minute recess. We'll come back. Be prepared to vote. Dr. Williamson,
Great. Mr. Chairman. and
action
members-
item.
Right.
Superintendent's recommendation based on policy 9010.
Right, correct. Mr. Chairman and members, thank you, first of all, to all our presenters tonight. I think they've done an outstanding job, and we certainly appreciate all the research to help get us to this point. I appreciate the board and the powerful discussions and concerns.
Wait a minute, where's Dr. Emmanuel at?
Outside.
Where's she at, Chris? Huh? No, we're getting ready to vote. We miss anybody now? Think we got everybody? Dr. Williams?
Right. Again, Mr. Chairman and members, we do want to thank everyone for their presentation tonight, the research on this critical issue. I thank the board in the manner in which you've discussed this. Now, in accordance to policy 9010, it states that the superintendent should make a recommendation to the board. My recommendation tonight is based on both sites being listed on the need-based grant application, that we take a vote on both sites and the majority will rule in terms of which site.
Craig?
This time, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we build a PSRC technology high school and planetarium at the Comtech Technology Park.
Second.
Had a motion by Craig, second by who? Second by Henry. Terry, you got a question?
Can we modify that motion and make it contingent upon the receipt of something, maybe like a deed or something in writing saying that we actually own that property? Because there was some discussion about, the swap. I know Mr. Roger came in and spoke, but there's some board members that are apprehensive about moving forward with nothing, in writing at the county level.
Mr. Grady?
So we've already got a 35-acre parcel there. And of course, the chairman of their board said by a unanimous vote, they had voted that they'd swap properties. That's as simple as just exchanging deeds. We've done that already for the board members that's been on here a number of years. Our first site that we purchased in Comtech was in 2002. In 2009, we swapped, if you remember, we swapped the property we had for the property we own now, that the public schools owns in Comtech now. So, that's a matter of a couple hours of work, to be honest with you. So based on what Terry said, the way I'd properly catch that motion, I think, is to build in Comtech, either on the site that we currently own or any site that we swap for in the Comtech facility.
I got you. Go ahead, Craig. I got a motion by Craig and a second by Henry. That discussion. Mr. Gentry?
Mr. Grady, I want to follow up with what you just said. Now, we've got the strength of the word of Mr. Roger Oxendine, which is credible, in my opinion. But we don't have anything in writing, an official document from the county commissioners stating what he stated.
County commissioners have nothing to do with this, Mr. Gentry.
That would be the Comtech board. That board's,
County commissioners have nothing to do with
that-
this project.
that board's an independent board that makes the decisions at Comtech now.
We have a motion and a second.
But I would couch the motion for either the property you know you own, or if you swap properties, and that kind, if it happens, it happens, and then you've already approved that second site.
I would like to amend the motion to that effect. We include that in the motion.
That it would be either side?
Yes.
And is that something that if it's approved tonight, it can go ahead and be taken care of in the next
The
few days?
swap,
The swap?
yeah, I mean, the
And get
swap.
the paperwork, get it done?
I won't say the next few
Go
days,
ahead.
but it's fairly general
Just a general.
work, yeah.
Yeah, I got you. Randy had his hand up.
Second that
Well-
motion amendment.
Go ahead, Randy.
I understand what Mr. Roger has said, but Mr. Grady, am I not correct that the county commissioners own the land at Comtech Park?
The county owns it. The county commissioners doesn't own anything. The county owns it.
Well, who's
But
in control of it?
Based on the fact that that's an independent board, that board makes those decisions, and the county just transfers the property. In essence, the county holds the property in escrow for Comtech.
Okay.
Monte's got the floor. You good? All right, we had a motion second, and then I had an amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Huh? Did you say? All right, I can do
Call for
that.
the question.
All in favor, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I would vote that would be 6. All opposed, raise your right hand. One, two, three, 4. Okay. Motion passed. I would like to say this on behalf of myself as a board member for the public schools of Robeson County. That's a big task that we just undertaken to build a career and technology high school center in the public schools of Robeson County. I've been here a long time. This touch a lot of kids, as Greg has said, in generations to come. We all have our own opinion about things, but you should be excited. You should be excited about this, about the decision. Not only that, Randy, but you mentioned about the planetarium. We're gonna get a new plan. We're gonna get a new planetarium. So, and all of it right there on 7-Eleven, you ride by there, it'd be very eye appealing. I look to have some of these other people that Shannon talked about coming on the backside. I see the front side of that, all the planetarium and science center and all the vocational stuff. What we put in this center is crucial. Dr. Emmanuel has mentioned it. What the groundwork is ahead of us now, the floor plan and how we lay it out and what we put there to benefit these boys and girls in public school is crucial to us. I appreciate you. Dwayne?
Yeah, and I would just like to say, I don't think there was no doubt in any of our minds that this was going to be an exciting time for the public schools. I think the main kicker more than anything else is making sure we got the location right. So it wasn't the ones that voted for it or against it. It was not against, having it built. It was mainly trying to feel like where you felt like a good location was at. So I'm excited, and want to be able to see things move forward. I know this has been a long time coming, and looking forward to hopefully they'll get things rolling pretty quick on this right here. So I think we can all agree that it's all about, we all wanted this, but we all wanted to try to get the location right. So I'm just speaking on behalf of me. I wasn't voting against not putting it up. So it was pretty much the location was with me.
Wait a minute, Brendan. Terry had his hand up. Terry, then Brendan.
I'm excited about getting started too. And the very next, the very next discussion should be about how we are working with our partner, our feeder institutions and our county in terms of economic development on how that curriculum should be aligned with the future of our county and where we want to go. So the very next discussion, we've got location out of the way. We need to go ahead and start talking about programming and how we can do the best job for our students and county population moving forward.
Brenda's got the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I'm very excited, and like Dwayne said, because in our first committee meeting, when he said he's ready to shovel some dirt, and I too have been ready to shovel some dirt. But to piggyback on what Terry was talking about, Dr. Wilkinson, where are we at as far as a committee forming the curriculums that will be at the school, and how soon would that be presented before this board?
That is the next step in the process. We've had some brief conversation in terms of who should chair that committee for us. We hope to have it together within 2 weeks, if possible, and we'll start work on that.
Dr. Emmanuel?
And I made the pledge that I always turn on, but I didn't. Anyway, there is a foundational curriculum that it had to be done to even get the grant, everything off the road. But there is a foundational curriculum already done, but it needs revising and pipping up and updated and needs assessment as to what business and industry wants. But the foundation's already done. You just need a person that's going to spearhead it and get it going. I am concerned, though, about the increase, like Terry said, the partnership with RCC and UNCP. I think that we can do a better job of pulling them in and making sure we're working together with them.
All righty. Got closed
Mr.
session.
Mike, I'd like to say,
All right, go ahead.
I don't see where we made any bad decisions because our partners in the county, when we look at RCC, and we look at the college down the road, I mean, it's easy, it's going to be easier when we go out and lobby for funding or whatever we need, because the justification is going to be in place. I think we all can go home and feel good that we serving the whole community. We're serving the whole community equally and fairly when it comes to distance. We can't estimate what the population is going to be like 10 years from now, but we can make the best of what we've got and thank God for what we got.
Randy's got the floor.
I move that the Board of Education for the Public Schools of Robeson County go into closed session for the purpose of discussing certified and classified personnel, North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A1 and 6, and to consult with the attorney retained by the board in order to preserve attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the Board of Education for the Public Schools of Robeson County, North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A1 and 3.
Have a motion by Randy. Who's second? Dwayne Bison. Seconded by Dwayne. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion passed.
Mr. Chairman, one of my professors said I need
opposed? Motion passed. Personnel. Have a motion by Brenda, second by Dwayne to approve personnel. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion passed.
I do.
Uh,
Principals.
You have something?
The principals.
Oh, you got to do that. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman and members, I want to make the following recommendation of our principals for the 2022-23 school year. Recommendation that we transfer Ms. Katrina Locklear from Fairmont Middle School to Union Elementary, that we employ Mr. Jermaine Watson, who is currently principal, Marlboro County High School, serve as principal at Lumberton Junior High, that we transfer Dr. Vivian Tyndall, AP at St. Paul's High School, to the new principal at Fairmont Middle. Mr. Anthony Barton, who is currently principal at Pembroke Middle, as the new principal for the early college. And then Mr. Jeremiah Moore, who's currently AP at Pembroke Middle, to the principalship at Pembroke Middle. Those are my recommendations, please.
Approved, the recommendations be motion by Superintendent Williamson, approved by Mr. Gentry. Anybody second? Second by Brenda. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion passed.
Great, thank you.
Had a motion to adjourn by Dwayne. Who's second? Somebody second? Henry second. Motion second. Second by Henry. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion passed. Thank you.